Good evening. Welcome to the High Court in Pretoria on day 5 of the Oscar Pistorius trial. Today the court has heard crucial testimony from an ex-girlfriend of the athlete who painted a detailed picture of the Olympian that she dated for more than a year. Samantha Taylor, who was just 17 when she started seeing Pistorius, broke down in tears as she told the court that their relationship ended after he cheated on her with Reeva Steenkamp. She described how Pistorius carried a gun with him at all times, slept with a firearm at his side, shot it out of the open sunroof of a car after becoming angry with a policeman. The court was forced to adjourn on more than one occasion as an emotional Miss Taylor claimed their relationship still hadn't ended when Pistorius appeared at a red carpet event with Miss Steenkamp in November 2012. Pistorius denies murdering Reeva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day last year. He denies several firearms offences as well. Paul Harrison reports.
Sorry guys, make space.
With Oscar Pistorius' arrival at court, so the trial arrived at the end of its first week. But there was certainly no let-up in evidence.
Thank you very much.
The Olympian sat transfixed as the court heard, for the first time, intimate details of his life, through the testimony of a former girlfriend, Samantha Taylor, including his nightly routine.
If you say he would use his cell phone at night, would that be to make voice calls?
No, that would be to message people.
Do you know what he did with his firearm at night?
He placed his firearm next to his bedside, on the bedside table, or next to his legs on the floor.
Giving evidence, but not on camera, the former model, who met Oscar Pistorius in 2010, told the court the athlete took his gun wherever he went. She described how, in one incident, in a car with a mutual friend, Pistorius talked of shooting at a robot or traffic light, and then fired a gun out of an open sunroof, after having been stopped for speeding.
When the police had a look, he saw the gun was on the seat, and he said to Oscar that the gun could not just be left on the seat there. So the policeman cocked the gun, and the bullets flew out of the gun into the car.
What did he do?
He shouted at the policeman because he said that he was not allowed to touch his gun. After we left there, Oscar and Darren were pretty anxious and a little bit irritated with the policeman, and so they laughed and they said that they wanted to shoot a robot. And then Oscar shot a bullet out the sunroof.
What did he say?
They both laughed.
What would have motivated Mr. Pistorius, according to your version, to fire the shot? The one can be because he's angry, the one can be because he's irritated, and the one can be because he's joking and laughing.
Maybe you should ask the accused.
I want to know about your observations, Ms. Taylor, because the accused does not admit this incident.
Well, from my observations, he was angry at the police after being stopped. Thereafter, when they wanted to fire a shot, they found it funny.
Before they fired the shot?
No, they fired the shot and then they laughed.
So he did not laugh before he fired the shot, he only laughed after firing the shot?
Yes.
Pistorius' legal team maintains witnesses on the night of the shooting mistook the Olympian's anxious, high-pitched screams for those of his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp. Prosecutor Gerry Nel argues otherwise.
If he screams and he's really anxious, he sounds like a woman.
That is not true. He sounds like a man.
Now, have you heard him scream?
Yes.
Once or more?
A few times, my lady.
When he screamed, did you see him being anxious?
I've seen him be very anxious.
And he would shout at him?
At myself.
Were you present when he screamed and shouted at other people?
Yes, I was, my lady.
That would include who?
That would include my sister, my best friend.
During those occasions, could you confuse the screams for that of a woman?
No.
But Pistorius' shouting, argued his lawyer, was different from his screams on the night of the shooting.
So when you heard him screaming, it was out of anger, but not in situations where he perceived his life to be threatened.
No, my lady.
The prosecution and defence then tackled the sensitive issue of who cheated on whom and when. Samantha Taylor insists she and Pistorius were still together when he and Reeva Steenkamp attended a sports awards ceremony in November in 2012.
Now, this relationship, how did it end? Now, finally end.
Finally, at the end.
Yeah, at the end.
He cheated on me with Reeva Steenkamp.
As the court pleases, my lady, I have nothing further.
Do you say that when he took Reeva Steenkamp out for the first time, that he was still in a relationship with you?
Yes, we were.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't want to do it, but I will come back later and make copies. But let me ask you, before we go to that process, when did your relationship stop with him?
The first time our relationship ended was when he cheated on me with... I'm sorry, my lady.
Just take your time, please.
A short adjournment and an emotional Samantha Taylor returned to explain the relationship was rocky but not over.
A week before the sports awards, we were in Sun City and we had a couple problems, and over that week there was a lot of commotion in our relationship, so we were still together, but we were having problems.
And you still maintain, because we will get, if necessary, to that and other emails, do you still maintain that on the 4th of November 2012 you were in a relationship with Oscar Pistorius?
Yes.
How did you feel about the breakup?
I was upset, my lady.
You were upset with him?
Despite needing a second adjournment to compose herself, Pistorius' ex returned to face the accusation she, in fact, cheated on Pistorius.
Is it not so that you sent him an email, well, 2 emails, admitting to cheating on him, and you apologized to him?
I did not cheat on Oscar. There was an altercation with a man that I was seeing after we had ended our relationship the first time, which is on email, my lady.
Samantha Taylor then described the moment Pistorius pulled a gun on a car which appeared to have been following the couple as they returned to the athlete's home. For the legal teams, subtle differences in Pistorius' actions.
When we arrived at his estate, he jumped out of the car with his gun and held it to someone's window, and then they drove away.
He called the security to tell them there was a problem. He then jumped out of the car to move away from the car, to take them away from you, that they don't focus on you if it was him, but he did not go to their car.
He did go to the car.
On what I understand, he wanted the court to believe that he wanted to protect you, so he got out of the car and ran to the side. Did that ever happen?
No, my lady.
Samantha Taylor argued Pistorius always had a phone with him overnight, testimony which will sit at odds with that of Oscar Pistorius.
What Mr. Pistorius will say is most of the times he would do it, but not always.
He would use his cell phone at least 4 or 5 times in bed.
4 or 5 times a week. Is that
no, in bed during the night.
every night?
Every night. I stayed there, yes. he charged his phone next to his bed, so every night he needed to charge the phone, and that is where he charged it.
Then a line of questioning which in time could prove crucial for prosecutor Jerry Nell. Samantha Taylor had been woken up by Oscar Pistorius one night when he thought an intruder had broken in.
Oscar woke me up and asked me if I had heard it, and I said it must have just been from the storm. There was a storm that night. And so he got up with his gun and he walked out of the room, and then I heard his friend Matthew at the time that was staying at his house with him. He also walked out the room, but I guess everything was fine after that.
But he woke you up?
Yes, he woke me up.
Welcome back to Pretoria, where the prosecution witness Samantha Taylor has been telling the High Court how her troubled relationship with Pistorius ended just months before he shot Reeva Steenkamp dead. This afternoon, a security guard at the gated community where Pistorius lived told of the chaotic moments after residents on the estate rang to report hearing gunfire.
Did you see Reeva Steenkamp, the deceased in this matter, on that night?
6 o'clock when she came in.
Now, when she came in, was she alone or was she with somebody else?
She was alone inside the car.
Did you talk to her?
Ja, ons het gepraat oor.
Yes, we spoke.
Did you see the accused arrive at the estate?
Daarna Reeva aangekom.
Mr. Pistorius came in a few minutes late, a few minutes after Reeva. I greeted Mr. Pistorius, and by then he was on his cell phone, my lady.
Mr. Barber, you know that this court case is about an incident that happened on that night. Please tell the court what happened.
About 5 to 3, I was already back at the gate. By duty patrol.
Het by die hek aangekom
To report that he had rifle shots.
van Dr. Stip en
After a few moments, I received telephone calls from Dr. Stubb
287.
as well as from Mr. Ntengetwa, and they also made a report to me that they had gunshots from their neighbors. Dr. Stubb and them were standing outside on the balcony. At that stage, Dr. Stubb pointed directly at Mr. Pistorius' house.
Tot daar gery.
So I immediately drove there. That's when I started making calls to Mr. Pistorius' house from the side cell phone. I then spoke to Mr. Pistorius.
Everything is fine.
That's when Mr. Pistorius said to me, security, everything is fine, just as the witness says it, my lady, in English. That's when I realized that Mr. Pistorius was crying. Not everything was in order, as Mr. Pistorius was telling me. I then tried to speak to Mr. Pistorius so that he could come down, my lady, just to make, so that I could make sure that everything was fine.
En die conversation het daar gedrop.
And that's where our conversation ended.
What happened after that?
Mr. Pistorius called me back.
Hy het net begin huil op die foon.
He just started crying over the phone. That's when the line went off again, my lady. After a few minutes, that's when Mr. Stander and his daughter came. I could directly see from their faces that they knew exactly that something happened at Mr. Pistorius' house. That's when Mr. Pistorius came down with Reeva.
What did you see? Tell us what
Wat
you
het julle gesien? I saw Mr. Pistorius coming down with Reeva.
My lady, ek het so groot geskrik
My lady, I was so shocked
dat ek nie vir 'n paar oomblikke kan gedink het
that I couldn't even think for a few moments. I was shocked, my lady, but I could see Oscar coming down with Reeva.
How did you come down with it?
My lady, as I said, I was staring at Oscar. I got such a terrible fright up until Mr. Pistorius told me that everything was fine. Only to come and find him carrying Reeva down.
How did he carry it?
As I said, my lady, I missed some points as to how was he carrying Reeva.
ek was te geskok.
I was too shocked.
And you saw him on the stairs.
Ek het hom daar op die trappies gesien.
Ja, my lady.
You never went into the house.
Ik heb binnen die huis gegaan nie.
Ons het voor meneer Staner, my lady, het voor ons in die deur gestaan.
My lady, Mr. Stander was standing in front of us.
Despite questioning from Pistorius' lawyer Barry Rue, Mr. Baba insisted that his account of the phone call with the Olympian was correct.
Mr. Pistorius made a call to the security cell number at 03:21 and 33 seconds.
Edele nie met my gepraat het nie.
And that was the time when Mr. Pistorius was crying, my lady. The time when he didn't want to speak to me. That he couldn't speak to me, my lady.
It accords with Mr. Pistorius. He says that it's indeed correct, he was crying. And he said that he then received a call, and we know the time from your call registered at 3:24.
I first spoke to Mr. Pistorius before he called me back, my lady. Mr. Pistorius said to me,
Security, everything is fine.
security, everything is fine.
He did not say, in response to a question, that he is okay.
Meneer Pistorius het gesê everything is okay.
No, Mr. Pistorius said everything is okay.
Did Mr. Pistorius say okay, or did he say fine?
Het hy gesê okay of het hy gesê fine?
My lady, die exact words van meneer Pistorius. Meneer Pistorius het gesê security, everything is fine.
Mr. Baba's evidence concluded proceedings for the first week of this deeply compelling trial, and over the past 5 days we've heard from a string of witnesses called by the prosecution to describe the events of that fateful night. All have faced tough questions, and next week no doubt we're going to see more of the same. Well, I'm joined now by our crime correspondent Martin Brunt and by criminal attorney Ike Motlong. Very good evening to you both. Ike, what have you made of today in court? What struck you most about it?
From the side of the prosecution, I think I understand where they're trying to go. Taylor, remember, she was not testifying on the killing of Reeva. She was testifying more on that shooting through the sunroof. But I think there are huge implications.
Well, Martin, I mean, she certainly placed quite a few things, including some new characterizations of Oscar Pistorius in court today.
Yes, the prosecution clearly using her to paint a picture of Oscar Pistorius, this hothead, this young man with anger issues, and perhaps most importantly of all, the man who is reckless around guns. I mean, she said quite a lot about her relationship with him. I mean, she was with him for, a couple of years. She used to spend 4 nights a week at his house. So as much as anybody in this trial, she knew Oscar Pistorius pretty well. And she was very precise in her details and talked about firing a gun through the sunroof of a car, talking about Oscar Pistorius waking up in the middle of the night and grabbing a gun because he thought he'd heard an intruder, but also quite emotional about the breakup of their relationship and how she discovered that he was seeing Reeva and then she ended it. Now, Oscar Pistorius' relationship with women is obviously a key part of this, but more importantly, most importantly perhaps, is his attitude to guns, and she was very vivid on the reckless young man using a gun and building on what we heard earlier in the week about a gun going off accidentally in a restaurant.
If you accept completely the evidence of Taylor, it says even in situations of perceived danger, like when Oscar thought they were being followed, what did he do? Jumps out of his car, he goes to where the danger is, flashing his gun.
When a policeman stopped him and had a go about his gun lying on the seat, he didn't like being told things by authority.
No, he was pulled over for speeding. The cop noticed his gun on the passenger seat. The gun was picked up by the policeman. He emptied the bullets onto the floor of the car, then gave the gun back. And this, according to Samantha Taylor, really angered him. She said that he was irate. And 2 minutes later, they're driving along, and he and the other guy in the car with him were looking for a traffic light, a robot they call them out here, looking for a traffic light to shoot out. And 2 minutes later, she said, there's Oscar Pistorius, according to her, shooting through the sunroof of her car.
And laughing about it.
And you know what is the problem there? Look, the judge must still make a finding, whether the judge believes Taylor or not. So we mustn't rush into that. But let's assume and work on what we have for the moment. In my respectable view, the only problem I have is the following. There's possibly the following danger. Whereas the evidence was so detailed, who we were with, where did we live from, in what motor vehicles, who climbed with who, in which motor vehicle, we went there, we had a job, we came back, who came back with who, and then this is how it happened. When Barry had the opportunity to cross-examine her, he had one sentence, for all intents and purposes, if I'm concerned, to say he will deny it. But there's no denying about, did we indeed live being this and that and that and that in these two motor vehicles, who was driving this motor vehicle, we went there. So how does one come with one conclusion to say, look, he will deny it? We should have dealt with all these factual allegations that she's making. And for me, it went really unattended.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts on the end of day 5, the end of the first week of the Oscar Pistorius trial, and you gathered plenty of food for thought. And I suppose what we were hearing today is what this case is all about, the why. Why did he do what he did? What was going through his mind? What was the motive? Was there a motive? Well, we'll be picking up the story again on Monday morning, of course, on Sky News, as we follow week 2 of the Oscar Pistorius trial.